Hi guys, it's Aoife from Words of Clover, and I'm here today to do a kind of very quick, chatty mid-year reading check-in. I know this is the time of year that like the mid-year freakout tag and mid-year roundup tags and stuff are going around, and I really like those tags, but I've done them before. So what I've done is kind of just shorten down some of the questions that you normally find in these kind of mid-year tags, and have just created one with 5 questions just for myself, so I can kind of talk briefly about my reading so far this year, how it's going, how I feel about it, some of the books I've really enjoyed, and yeah, just to kind of chat with you about my reading so far. So I thought that would be the easiest thing to do, and I will leave the questions down below if anyone wanted to do a similar kind of just a quick easy version of the mid-year freakout tags and stuff like that. But yeah, so the first question is basically how many books have I read so far this year. So my goal this year is 110 books. I have had it 100 books the last few years, which because I know that I can get to the 100 books pretty easily. I don't know really what I was thinking this year where I added the extra 10 on, but I did. So I have spent quite a lot of the year being a little bit behind on my goal, but in the last few weeks, because I have been off work, I've actually been able to kind of catch up a little bit. So at the moment I'm on 54 books read at time of filming this video, so I'm 2 books ahead at the moment according to Goodreads of my goal. Now I'm very aware that this will probably go back and forth between depending on how things go obviously and how my reading goes over the next few months. So we'll see if I get to the 110, and if I don't, I'll probably be putting a lower goal next year. But yeah, I don't know, I was feeling kind of courageous this year with the 110, because I feel like anything over 100 does put a little bit more pressure on my reading, and I was like, I've so much going on the last 2 years. I was like, I don't need pressure on my reading goal on top of other things that are going on in my life, so I had kept it at the 100. But yeah, this year for some reason I decided to do 110. But yeah, a good kind of halfway through now, and at a good point for halfway through the year with my reading goal. My second question here is, how am I feeling about my reading? So I'm feeling pretty good about my reading. I feel like, as I said, things have been really busy the last couple of years in my life, between like, you know, house buying, doing, creating a home for myself, planning a wedding, now planning a baby, well, not planning a baby, like literally waiting for a baby to arrive. So yeah, life just lifes sometimes, and when that happens, other things in your life do tend to slow down a little bit, and for me particularly, it was like when work got quite busy, and then with everything else on top of that, with like a change in my work. I changed jobs at the beginning of last year, and I found that just in terms of even during the day, the way I was reading, going from like a remote job to an in-office job, and an in-office job where like you are also kind of spending more time with your colleagues at lunchtime, so like that kind of, there was kind of pockets of reading that like I didn't have anymore. So I did come to terms last year about like my reading really slowing down in certain aspects, like of my day-to-day life and my weekly life, and there were some like days where I just wasn't as much into reading. I found ways to incorporate reading a little bit better in terms of maybe some audiobooks and stuff like that. So yeah, as I said, my life kind of got busy, and then my reading slowed down last year, where this year was kind of the same for the first like 4 or 5 months of the year. It was going at a good pace, but it still was kind of pretty slow, but I wasn't too angry about it. I was kind of just letting it, like going with the flow with it. And then again, as I said, the last couple of weeks I haven't been working because I am on my maternity leave now, and I really feel like I've been able to fly through the books again, kind of audiobooks through walking Rossi, though we do go on a very slow ramble these days. It's not really a walk for her, it's kind of boring because I can't walk very fast anymore. And then just having like pockets of the day, because obviously I'm not working, I don't have all this, like I don't have so many things to do, even though I do like to do like a little list for myself to tick off, just so I feel like I'm a bit productive every day. But I have like kind of like hours or chunks of time at the moment where I can just sit down and read. Now I know in the next few weeks those are going to all go away, so I've taken them with gratitude right now. And yeah, my reading, as I said, has sped up the last few weeks. I feel like my old not quite my old reading mojo in terms of like the 5 or 6 books a week, but like that kind of graw for reading, or really like cementing that time for reading and really enjoying it, um without having like all these other things like in my mind that I have to do, or I have to, like not feeling guilty for sitting down and reading my book, because I feel like I always have other things that I need to be doing. I feel like that has come back, and yeah, so I've been really, really enjoying just getting really back into reading again. And as I said, I know it's going to change pretty soon, and I'm not going to be getting those like peaceful pockets of time when it comes to reading, but I'm really determined to, like with the baby, to try and figure out the best ways I can still fit in reading, whether it's through audiobooks or, a little bit of nighttime reading during night feeds, or, with in between pockets of extreme tiredness, relaxing with a book, because and like figuring that out with, obviously, with my husband, and how we can both still find time for ourselves as well as looking after a little one. So yeah, I'm feeling good about my reading, optimistic about the rest of the year when it comes to reading, but also trying to sustain realistic goals and expectations with my reading as well. So question number 3 is the best book I've read so far this year. So when I looked through my reading spreadsheet for the year, which I always love to do, I love a reading spreadsheet, I had 13 5-star books so far this year, which isn't too bad if I do say so myself. And there were 2 that really kind of stuck out to me as these are the ones that, like, by the end of the year, I still feel like these will be the ones that will stick out to me. The first one I read, I think it was either the start of March or in February, and that was Anybody Out There by Marian. This is I think it might be the 4th or 5th book in the Walsh family series that she does, and this one is following Anna, who is one of the sisters. And at the start of the book, we know that Anna has been in this like terrible accident in New York, and she's now back at home in Dublin in her mum and dad's house, and they're like looking after her, but all Anna wants to do is go back to New York and reconnect with her husband Aidan, who we know is back in New York, and she's really worried about him, and she just needs to get back to New York and talk to him. So we see that journey of her doing that, and then we just find out things about like why she ended up in Dublin in the first place, the accident, things about her marriage, and then her career and her going forward from there. And this was just comedic. It was heartbreaking. It was just so gripping. I absolutely loved it. Anna as a character, I really, really loved. She's a character that we've seen kind of flit in and out of the other books, and she like we kind of see her in slightly more serious way in this book, because she's kind of a little bit more grown up. She has like her office job, which is the best job in the world according to her sisters, because she's like a makeup PR person, so she gets loads of free makeup, so her sisters are like think that she's the best job in the world, and just like there were so many elements of her New York life that was really exciting to read, that I really enjoyed, but then there was just so many elements of her personal life that I just was so hooked onto. And just the way, as I said, the way this was written, it was equally like joyous, comedic and heartbreaking all at the same time, and you kind of got whiplash about how you were feeling, and I just absolutely loved it. I flew through it, and I think this was like my first 5-star read of the year, and it's still one of the best reads of my year. And then another book that is probably going to be on a lot of people's 5-star reads, I say, for 2025 is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I actually have a physical copy of this, but I've since given it to my dad to read because he's a huge Hunger Games fan. So I read this recently, just in June, and yeah, I just loved this. I loved going back to Hamish as a teenager and seeing his games, seeing what like the capital and what the world was like for him, how corrupt things were, kind of the start of this kind of rebel movement that we see obviously be in a much more adult stage by the time Katniss's books come around. I really liked seeing kind of inklings of all of that. There was definitely like a lot of fan service in this book in terms of like characters who we know and love from the originals showing up in Hamish's book, but like I loved that. Like that is like catnip to me. I love those kind of things, and if they're written well, if it's written into the story well, then I don't mind it. I think this was done really well. I feel like Hamish's book gave so much clues. It fit in so well for a book that's written so much after the original trilogy. it gave so much in terms of why those characters are the way they are in the original trilogy, and not just Haymitch but like a bunch of other characters as well. And it feels like things that happen in this book explain some of the actions that they do in the original trilogy, and I just love that. I think Suzanne Collins is a genius. I just love how she just bangs out these like amazing books every few years. And honestly, I could just like keep going and have like, I could have a Hunger Games book for like all of our favorites. Like I would love to, like, even though I know that's like not a possibility, but I would love like a Joanna book. I would love a Finnick book. I'd love them all. So yeah, I absolutely really loved this one. And then question number 4 is my worst book so far this year. So I have had 2 books this year that were 2 stars, which I think might be like my lowest ratings. The first one is actually, I DNF'd it at about 60%, and that was Mercury Pictures Presents by Anthony Marra, and this one just didn't work for me. This is set in the 1940s in Los Angeles, and we are seeing kind of this different version of World War II and like the outbreak, not quite the outbreak, but like World War II from the eyes of people who are working in Hollywood. And we're following a particular character. We're following a bunch of characters, but one particular character, she emigrated from Italy when she was younger, and we know that her father was kind of like in this kind of prisoner of war camp in Italy for different views that he obviously had against Mussolini. And we're kind of seeing her childhood. We see where her dad is now, what is happening to her dad, and then there's a person who's connecting her and her dad when she's grown up, who kind of comes and finds her in Los Angeles. And we see her in this pictures business, and we see all the other people who are involved in this, including like the owners of this business, and they're kind of employed to make these kind of like war, I don't know whether it's war propaganda movies or like these kind of like movies about the war, to try and encourage, I don't know whether it's to encourage people to sign up or to help morale. And I loved the premise of this, and I loved what the author was trying to do. I think, like, you know, like World War II story set in LA is like really interesting, and then there's also like a big demographic of people that we're following, like immigrants, and you know, we have a character who is I don't know whether I think he's Chinese, like of Chinese descent, but he ends up always playing like, you know, like the Japanese guys, like the evil, like the enemy people, and we also see how he's been treated as obviously like looking Asian in a country where like they're fighting against Japan. And how he's treated like on the street by some people, or people who recognize him from the movies and can't distinguish him as an actor versus who he's playing as a character. And I thought that was really interesting. But the book itself was just it just was so slow moving for me, and I liked the kind of the like eccentricities that the author was trying to do with the characters. It kind of reminded me of, say, like Frederick Backman or something like that. But because the plot and the story was so slow moving for me, I just couldn't get invested in the story at all, and I've really struggled to get through this. And eventually I just had to put it down, and I don't regret that decision, because I haven't once thought like, oh, I wonder how that ended up. It just really didn't work for me at all. And then a book that I was really surprised that I didn't enjoy, because I've heard really good things about this book. I read this at the very start of June, end of May, start of June. I listened to this in audiobook, and it was You Make a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Amezi. And this one, I really hated this book. Following a character called Faye, who we know 5 years previously lost her husband in a car accident, and she's dealing with grief and, you know, just really kind of, you know, thinking about what her life could have been like, and she starts to dip her toe back into the dating world. And at the very start of the book, we see her meet a guy at a party and have sex with him, and all these complicated feelings that come from finally kind of moving on and having sex with someone after the death of a loved one. And the story kind of progresses, and we see her kind of have a couple of other romantic relationships, and eventually she is kind of in a romantic relationship with this guy, though nothing kind of physical has happened between them yet. And he takes her on holidays to his, I think it's somewhere in Nigeria, where he's from, and they stay in his father's house, and we see her start to form an attachment with someone there who is kind of like, it's like kind of like a taboo relationship in a way, and she's an artist as well, and we see her art and her grief all kind of be a really big story for her as well. And I just hated this. I really didn't like the main character, Faye. I thought that we learn nothing about her except that she apparently is really beautiful and every man wants to be with her, basically. And like we hear a lot about obviously her grief and her partner, but we never actually see anything about that relationship, or like who her husband was apart from being her husband and someone who she loved very much. We don't see any kind of actual details about their relationship and who he was and who she was and what their relationship was like, the ups and downs of it, except it's just like this kind of golden glow in the background of like, this is her ultimate, you know, the love of her life and he will always be there. And like, I absolutely understand that, but it's just like, it was missing this kind of like whole reality for me. And then there is a trope in this one that I don't want to say what the trope is in case it's like a spoiler for people in terms of the romance that eventually happens in this, but I just thought it was really icky and I really didn't like it. And I don't know if I've read a book with this trope in it before, and I think maybe that trope just it either isn't for me or I just didn't like it in the context of this book. And I felt the way this trope ends up and how it's revealed, and the character that she is originally in a romantic kind of relationship with, how he reacts to things is kind of, he's given a real disservice in the book because of how he reacts, where I feel like now obviously there are things said and reactions that aren't good, but like people do react out of anger and say things out of anger sometimes, but I was like, I don't think he's like I think you can give him a pass, or at least he has some standing here in terms of his level of anger. And I just didn't really like how his character was treated, like where he came from and what he seemed to be like, and then how he was treated by the author, by his reactions. I felt it was just like really unfair. And yeah, I just didn't like Faye as a character. I just didn't think she was a very nice person. She didn't seem to care too much about other people that much. And yeah, as I said, she had no substance for me other than like this really beautiful artist that like everyone seems to want to get with. I didn't really feel like, that's all I really felt like I got from her. So yeah, this was a 2 out of 5 stars for me, and I just didn't really like it at all. I was really glad when the audiobook finished, and the audiobook was narrated by Bonnie Turpin, who is a narrator that I normally really, really like. And like, she did a great job, but the story just wasn't for me at all. And then the last question I have is any books I haven't read yet but I want to or I need to. And then one book I did get from the Women's Prize longlist was Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell. This is about a woman who basically she just like gets in her car one day with her daughters and just like leaves her house, and we see her kind of why she made this decision, and we're just following her as like things work out or don't work out for her. I don't know too much about it, except I've just heard really, really good things about this. And yeah, it's one I definitely need to read. I might try and prioritize this for July maybe, and try and get it read. But yeah, I've heard really, really good things. I just haven't read it yet, even though I got it in like March. And then another book that just came out recently that I've been humming and awing about buying, I don't know, I might, is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is just the new Taylor Jenkins Reid book. And this one is following 2 astronauts, I think, and maybe their relationship, 2 female astronauts. And I think it's set maybe in the 80s, but I can't remember. But like, I love a Taylor Jenkins Reid. They're always really fun, and I have enjoyed some more than others. I've enjoyed some more than others, but yeah, give me a science female astronaut book, but is set in her world of, you know, Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and all the others, Carrie Soto. I love it. So yeah, I am definitely there. So I'll definitely be reading it. I just don't know if I want my own copy or not, if I'll buy it or not, or if I'll wait till maybe it comes out an audiobook, because her audiobook on the library, I should say. Because Taylor Jenkins Reid's books are always really, really good on audiobook, so, and I always really enjoy them. So yeah, I'm in 2 minds about what to do there. So yeah, someone be the devil on my shoulder and let me know what I should do. So yeah, that is everything for kind of my mid-year check-in. Let me know what you guys think. How many books have you read? How's your reading going so far this year? What's your best book, worst book? Yeah, I'd love to know. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.